Okay, this is from the book Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease. No, Prevent and Reverse Diabetes. Reverse Diabetes by me, Pete Rogers. And again, it's a small book. Look at this. It's only about 140 pages. And it's written to help the regular diabetic patient get better. So it's not as fancy and exciting and glamorous and as full of academic orgasms like most of my books. It's more like, this is why you're sick. This is what you do to get better. And then for the curious one, so I start out the book with the most important, easiest information right at the beginning so that, because diabetics, like I said, they tend to be lazy and stupid. So if they could at least read the first 10 pages, they'll save their life, okay? It only costs about 25, 30 bucks, okay? So, but for me, this is a little bit boring, but it's what people need to know. So we're going to go through it. Glyphosate is the herbicide sprayed on GMO soy most typically, but it's also sprayed on a bunch of other things. I made a recent video that it's sprayed on over 70 things, okay, including non-organic beans and oats and a whole bunch of other foods that would otherwise be good. Glyphosate is pretty toxic stuff. They claimed initially that it was just toxic to bacteria, but the reality is it has a big effect on humans. There's a lady by the name of Stephanie Semenith, a PhD from MIT, who wrote an entire book about it called Toxic Legacy that's very good. She has a bunch of lectures. Just type her name in, you'll find them. They're good. Okay, so it increases the risk of leaky gut. It increases as an excitotoxin, has a negative effect on brain cells, and it also increases your risk of fatty liver. Fatty liver is pre-diabetes, diabetes. Okay, so you don't want this stuff. That's why I only eat organic. I got tons of footnotes for all this stuff, so I did that on purpose because I know some people are going to whine and bitch and, all the paleo, keto carnivores, but to me this stuff's all pretty obvious. Okay, next, high fructose corn syrup, typically comes from non-organic GMO corn sprayed with atrazine, the estrogenic chemical, which is also diabetogenic in and of itself and feminizing. Okay, it increases the risk of fatty liver. Fatty liver is pre-diabetes, diabetes. Okay, I've talked about in previous lectures all about fructose and how it increases the risk of fatty liver, and in particular industrial fructose. By that I mean the processed chemical like in soda pops and all that. And fruit's a different story because it comes in tiny amounts. It's packaged with the antioxidants and the fiber and all the other good stuff. Okay, so I'll go into a little bit of fructose metabolism there, but the important point is fructose in fruits is okay. Lustig exaggerates the problems with fructose. This guy, Jay Feldman, he has a good biochemistry discussion of fructose, but I think he underestimates the problem. So the truth, I think, is somewhere in between what Lustig and Feldman say. And high fructose corn syrup is often 65% fructose. It's often contaminated by mercury if they push it through a chloralkali vat. And fruits can be quite good. The guy, Bobby Barbaro, he runs a company called Mastering Diabetes. He's a type 1 diabetic himself. He has a great online lecture about the benefit of eating fruits for diabetics. So he's a pretty smart guy. I was impressed by his lecture. Also, the uric acid, which is a byproduct of high fructose corn syrup metabolism, is a vasoconstrictor, and that will cause insulin resistance as well. Okay. The next thing is alcohol. I recommend you don't drink any alcohol at all. It doesn't do you any good. It does you a significant negative. And so, the average person's always say, well, can I just have 2 drinks a day or 2 drinks a week or whatever? And my response is, you can do whatever you want, okay? But, optimal amount of alcohol is 0. You see, what happens to most people is they haven't really seen much disease or suffering. They know one aunt, uncle, or grandparent or something, or their parents who got sick. But they're not around it that much. I'm around train wrecks, disasters all day long. And so I don't want to do anything that pushes me in the direction of being sick. Sooner or later, we're going to get old, sick, and die. Okay, fine. But what you want to do is kind of live pretty well and then at the end go off a cliff and die. Okay? What you don't want is like the typical American, just crash and burn and be fat, sick, and stupid in your late 50s or if not sooner and just be sort of kind of pathetic and slow all through the remainder of your life. And even though you might live another 10, 15, 20 years even, you can't do anything. You're not really capable of anything. That's not much of a way to go through life. Like in Animal House, what did he say? Dean Wormer said to Flounder, he said, fat, sick, and stupid is no way to go through life. Or no, he said, fat, sick, and drunk, I think, was no way to go through life. Something like that. Fat, drunk, and stupid was no way to go through life. Okay, what else? Excess alcohol causes all kinds of problems, causes fatty liver, that's prediabetes, diabetes of the liver. Dairy is really high in saturated fat, which causes insulin resistance. It also increases your risk of autoimmune disease, type 1 diabetes, type 1.5 diabetes, multiple sclerosis, and all kinds of other problems, even if it's skim milk, prostate cancer. Aluminum also has a toxic effect on the pancreas beta cells, so you got to filter your water. Get a reverse osmosis filter for your kitchen is a good idea. It's good to have a whole house carbon filter because you're going to shower in that estrogenic water. The reverse osmosis filter also removes fluoride, which is toxic too, and it can lower your IQ and contributes to leaky gut and all those problems. Never put your food on aluminum foil. Never eat out of an aluminum container. I know a lot of people, including doctors and nurses and technologists, who often eat out of aluminum container. When you get fast food, tell them don't put it in aluminum. It's not rocket science. They can use wax paper. Never use spray-on aluminum deodorant because you'll inhale some of that. And it goes right to your olfactory nerve near your olfactory center, near your hippocampus. Okay. What's the fattest? What neuroscience institute has the fattest students? The hippocampus. Okay. Incidence of breast cancer has gone up in the last 100 years because people are rubbing aluminum into their armpits next to that upper outer quadrant and shaving it to get more transdermal absorption. Pretty stupid. When you walk in a room, you just say hi. You don't sniff each other's armpits. By the time somebody gets that close to you, they like you, okay? You don't need to worry about deodorant at that point. Artificial sweeteners increase insulin resistance. Sweet taste leads the pancreas to release more insulin, but the glucose isn't there. Insulin resistance will develop. Excessive dietary animal protein increases insulin resistance. It activates mTOR and causes other problems. All right, I think we'll leave it there for now, but the basic message is obvious. Just avoid all this stuff, and it's pretty easy. What do? You become a low-fat, low-sodium vegan, and no oil. Keep your life simple. Exercise a lot.